wait for us. Routine, hopefully we will not have any issues. Scott, can you hear him okay now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
I'm saying hello to the delegates because I haven't had the chance to say hello to anybody here because I lost my voice. So let me say hello to them and come back to you again. So welcome. Nice to be with us on a sunny day in Antalya. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine in England as well. I know that there has been a climate change issue recently, and we have been enjoying lots of sun and warm weather in England as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Thank
beautiful
you.
here.
Yep, great. So welcome everyone once again. It has been really nice to see many of you here online and in person as well. And this is incredible. And we have been working hard to create an international platform for you, inclusive, diverse platform for you so that you could learn from that platform in terms of the knowledge transfer and scholarship. And it has been great, really. And well done, we have made it. And we have made it despite of all these global challenges that we have been going through, COVID, wars, economic recessions in different parts of the world. So I would like to congratulate you for your determination. So let's move forward. So today we have Scott for us, the editor of the Annals of Tourism Research. Now, when it comes to Annals of Research, I have personally seen Annals as a pioneer outlet, a journal in the field. Because I'm going to give Scott to talk about the distinctiveness of the journal, but Annals has always, in my eyes, stood out of the crowd when we look at different journals and what they publish and the target audience. Annals has managed to establish itself as a distinctive outlet. So today, what I'm going to be doing with Scott is we're going to have a conversation. It's not going to be like me asking questions, Scott answering, and then I'm asking questions and Scott responding. We're going to have a dialogue here, conversation, so that we can all enjoy. So we will spend 20 minutes asking questions, elaborating on our answers, and then I will stop and give you an opportunity, 10 to 15 minutes, to ask Scott questions as well. This session is particularly important for early career researchers and PhD students. So do take advantage of this session. So Scott, it has been a great honor to have you with us today. And what I would like to do, without further delay, I would like to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you have been doing as an editor, as well as a researcher. And also, more importantly, tell us about your journal and tell us what makes your journal stand out of that crowd. So many journals out there in the field. So what is distinctive with regards to Annals? So thank you very much once again.
Well, thank you very much, Levent, for the invitation to be with you today, at least remotely. It's a shame that I couldn't be with you in Turkey, but as Levent says, we have this fantastic weather. The door is open here, so it's very unseasonable. And so it's great to be with you, even virtually. A little bit about myself. I've been working at the University of Nottingham in the business school for now 15 years. And I've been an associate editor at Annals of Tourism Research since around 2008. And then in 2018, I was asked to co-edit the journal together with Sarah Dolnikar in Australia. And well, that was a great honor because like Levent, I always thought that Annals was really the place where I could see my very, very best research being published. So it was truly a great honor to be asked to do that. but since we've been working as co-editors since the 1st of January 2018, and in that time I think there's been a big change in the publishing field. There's been a huge growth in publications in tourism and across the social sciences, but also there's been a big change in the type of work that we publish. So I just want to give you a little bit of background to that. In terms of my own research, I see myself as a qualitative researcher primarily. I'm interested in social psychology, the sociology of tourism, but also something about the psychology of individuals and what makes tourism important for people and shapes their behavior and identity. But from the point of view of the journal, I think that what makes Annals distinctive is its perspective on the social sciences. So it looks at tourism from a social science perspective, basically, which makes it slightly different from other journals in the field. And this social science orientation is a very broad church. Okay, so we welcome submissions that are within economics, just as much as we welcome submissions that are on behavioral sciences or anthropology or sociology or other branches of social sciences. And we also like to encourage other types of interactions between social science scholars and other branches of science, like engineering or information systems, for example. So I think that, you know, in previous eras and decades, Annals is nearly 50 years old. It will be in 2023, 50 years old. And so it's one of the more earlier tourism journals. It's always had a social science orientation, but I think that there's been a shift from more anthropological and geographical sciences towards more business and management orientation. So management science, behavioral sciences, and so on, consumer behavior, service industries, small businesses, entrepreneurship, all of these branches of management science, as from a social science perspective, are also important for Annals. So we've sort of shifted the direction slightly, not us ourselves, but it reflects the changes in the way tourism is being now studied. You know, there was this big growth in tourism and hospitality schools, and now there's been, in recent years, a bit more of a contraction, and tourism researchers have become more embedded again in business schools primarily, as well as those other schools such as geography and so on. Another thing that makes Annals distinctive, I think, is its orientation to the advancement of knowledge about tourism phenomena from a theoretical or conceptual perspective. So it's looking primarily for theoretical or conceptual insights into tourism phenomena, which I think probably makes it a little bit more different to other journals which have a more applied focus. We've recently launched Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights as a sister journal alongside Annals, specifically to try and promote or to give an outlet for those really high quality empirical contributions, because we recognize that there's an issue with replication across the sciences and also social sciences, which, you know, the replication studies find it difficult to get into the really top quality journals. But also there are other very, very important empirical contributions that need to be made, but actually do not have a very strong focus on pushing forward or advancing conceptual constructs in tourism. And so we wanted to support the development of the open access sister journal, Empirical Insights, to be able to provide an opportunity or an outlet to publish those empirically focused studies. Have I talked enough, Levent, now? Do you want me to move on?
Oh, thank you very much, Scott. So for the sake of the discussion, I would like to pick up on a couple of points that we could use as a context for our discussion later on. So there were two important things. I mean, many important things that Scott mentioned, but I would like to remind you that there are two issues there that we could collectively try to have a discussion around. One is analysis is welcoming social science informed studies. So maybe we should collectively think what type of studies or topics that we could take or tackle in order to be able to utilize this social science informed studies that would be of value not only for the academics, for the practitioners, all right? But here, another important point Scott mentioned, correct me if I'm on this on the spot, Scott. If I go off the tangent, bring me back to the focus again. So one is social science informed studies, importance of publishing social science informed studies, and what type of topics could that be? All right, that's first question for us, not for Scott, but we can elaborate on this. And the second one is the importance of theory development, right? And the development of the existing concepts. So there is room for hospitality and tourism studies, tourism and hospitality studies, to develop theories as well. So, right? So it's an important point that for us to note, and then later we could elaborate on it with Scott, all right? So I will move on to my next question, which is very important for all of us. And I would like to play this differently. But let me tell you the background to this question. Now, if you go and attend every single panel of Meet the Editor sessions, this question comes up. How do we justify the contribution to knowledge? And then editors take their guards and respond to these questions, and we clap, say, that's great. But when it comes to practice, we struggle. So what we're gonna try to do today is we're going to work on an example, and all right? And I'm gonna ask Scott to respond to this question by saying, think about a publication, a paper that has been published in your journal recently. What made this paper innovative, right? What was distinctive about this paper? So floor is yours again, Scott.
Yeah, I want to point out a really interesting study that was just published in, I think, the last volume of Annals, which is from a group of researchers in China called The Identity Construction of Chinese Anime Pilgrims. And what I found was really nice about this paper is that it looks at a really, really topical and important part of tourism, which is anime pilgrimages. Anime is like Japanese animated characters in games, cartoons, or graphic magazines. And it links to film and media induced tourism, but it's a special sort of niche area there. So this is the context for the study, okay? So anime pilgrimages by Chinese Gen Z tourists to sites in Japan that are linked to these anime cartoon places and stories. But what it looks at, the conceptual focus, is on identity constructions of these pilgrimage, these people that take these pilgrimages to Japan to visit the places that are the locations or scenes for these anime stories. And what it does is it problematizes identity studies in tourism. Okay, identity is very important, and this is why it's I've got a strong personal interest in tourist identities as well. Tourism allows us to play with our identities a little bit. You know, when we travel, we can be somebody else a little bit. We can pretend to be somebody else, or we can adopt a persona or a type of identity that we wouldn't necessarily adopt in everyday life. So we know that happens, but there's actually quite limited amount of engagement with social psychology, identity theory in tourism. And this paper, it looks at identity theory as it's constructed by these anime tourists, and it sort of says what happens and also categorizes different tourists by different identity positions, and tries to map out the process. And they come up with a model, which I'm looking at right now, which sort of categorizes anime pilgrimages into fans, tourists, pilgrims, or anime me, people who want to sort of adopt an anime persona. And it categorizes the different identity positions by these different groups of tourists. And I think that that's what makes it distinctive, and that's what makes it pertinent to be published in annals, because it tries to develop a sort of conceptual understanding of what's going on in the minds of these people as they visit these types of places. Another important thing about anime and other media-induced tourism is that it tends not to be associated with those cultural and heritage hotspots that we associate with tourism, traditional or conventional modes of mass tourism. So it's not looking at, you know, sort of going to over-tourism destinations. These types of destinations that anime pilgrims go to are, you know, side streets or back streets in different localities. So it's quite interesting because it can help understand not only what different types of tourists are doing in their travel practices, but also might help practitioners to develop new routes across the cities and destinations and regions for tourist destinations that take tourists off the beaten path, or sort of create new opportunities and new markets for tourism within different destinations that are away from these overcrowded spots. So it hits a number of different topical areas for me, Levent.
Thank you, Scott. I mean, I'm gonna try to put everything in a nutshell to my ability. Obviously, you read the article, I haven't. So I'm gonna rely on your interpretation of the things and pull out a couple of things from there. So the first thing, as far as I could hear from what Scott said, is strong conceptualization, strong, good, efficient use of the theory. Am I right, Scott?
Yeah.
And use of different groups sample to allow comparisons. Yeah, am I right?
Well, it's not using different samples, but it's looking at all people that were. It's based on a qualitative study where it looks at, it categorizes people in the interviews that it makes with the types of travel experiences that they have. So it takes anime tourism, but then it identifies different groups of people within that.
And the study itself could offer or offer implications for not only to the destination in which it was conducted as a study, but it might have implications for the other destinations as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's got, for annals, it needs to have implications that go beyond the context, really. We're looking for more generalizable implications that, you know, speak to the context, but also speak to other destinations or other users, or have wider implications in the way that the methodology, for example, could be employed in different contexts.
Okay, that's great. If you could, Scott, share that reference with us in chat at some point. It doesn't have to be now. That would be of great help, so that the attendees could then relate back to what we are discussing later on, or reflect on what we are discussing. Thank you so much. Shall I move on to the next question? Oh, here we go. Great help. Thank you so much. You are so efficient.
I can give you the Science Direct link as well, so just hold on a second. As soon as I find my mouse. There you go.
Excellent. Right. So thank you, Scott. So I'm moving on swiftly to the third question, which is related to the rigor and methodology in particular. So what we will be doing now with this, Scott, is again picking up on an article, and you know, there are different ways of justifying contribution or innovativeness of any study. It could be a conceptual contribution, so we could focus on conceptual innovativeness of the paper, or we could focus on, or we could focus on methodological innovativeness. So what we will be doing with Scott is going through, doing same exercise again, and going through an article where Scott felt the methodology of that paper was particularly distinctive. Yes? And here we go again, Scott, the floor is yours. What was so special about that methodology used by those authors?
Yeah, I've popped the reference to it again in the chat there already. It's again from one of the most recently published articles, I think in the current volume that's in progress, or the one that's just been published. But this is on the importance of leisure travel for psychosocial well-being. And there's been a lot of studies around well-being, and I've got a personal interest in that as well, because I've done some research on well-being amongst social tourism users. And there are such a wide range of different approaches to tackling this subject of well-being. And well-being as a construct is, can be applied and developed from different theoretical perspectives. So this particular article by Andreas Sins and his colleagues over in Model University in Austria is based on sort of positive psychology. So it's looking at sort of eudaimonic well-being, aspects of well-being. But that's not the only type of well-being. And there's a really, really rich range of research out there and different types of approaches that researchers could use to understanding well-being. And well-being is different from happiness. We think about tourism as a hedonic practice, right? So we undertake tourism because we want to have fun, pleasure, hedonic motivations, and so on. But the contribution of tourism to, other wider ranges of psychosocial well-being, like eudaimonic well-being, developmental well-being, it's a little bit less well understood. And the methodological issue here is, if we ask people about their well-being, then we ask them again about their well-being after a holiday, how do we know that the holiday is attributable to the increase in well-being? And it's a methodological question that we all struggle with. Whether how you ask somebody what are the effects of the intervention, the holiday, on their levels of well-being or happiness will undoubtedly influence really the types of responses that you get. So what makes this study unique is that, and it's not a recent study, the study was done quite a long time ago, but it's based on 508 qualitative interviews, semi-structured sort of life story interviews. And it's based really on unobtrusive methods. So in other words, it wasn't really looking at well-being from the perspective of holiday making. It was looking at people's well-being. So interviewers asked people about their lives, life conditions, their psychosocial well-being, including biographical narratives, past events, their impacts on life, lasting moods, emotions, and memories. I'm just reading from the screen here: important issues, sources of strength, impacts on current moods, goals already achieved. So it's quite wide-ranging interview structure about psychosocial well-being, but it wasn't focused on the importance of leisure travel. So it relied on people to basically mention spontaneously the link between holidays, their leisure travel, and the impact it had or the influence it had on their psychosocial well-being. So what's important then is that this is a type of, it doesn't really have interference in terms of the conceptual side of things. So we're not pushing people to make that link. We're sort of hoping that link will emerge. Well, of course, it did emerge, but only for a proportion of the respondents, as you'd expect. So by not focusing specifically on leisure travel and its important role in contributing to psychosocial well-being, we actually find in a more rigorous way that leisure travel does have an important impact, but only for a group of people or for certain elements of society or in particular contexts.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. As you might notice from the program or realize, as a society, we would very much like to place more emphasis on research capacity development in different parts of the world. So this conference in particular is not just focusing on how to publish, which would be very much an output-driven approach. You might have seen in our program, we are having sessions, workshops on literature review, quantitative data analysis, qualitative data analysis, and other research methodology sessions that would be of value for the early career researchers and PhD students. Now, looking at your journal, I would like to have a follow-up question for you there. In terms of the methodologies, what methodologies are on rise, popular recently when you look at your submissions or reflect on your submissions?
Well, I tend to have responsibility for the articles that fall into the qualitative side of things. And I know that Sarah deals with mostly the quantitative side. So that's how we sort of try and split the work between us. Her strengths are more in the qualitative side. And I know that Sarah is very keen on methods that are able to capture real or actual behavior or behavior change, rather than something that's simulated or theoretically driven in terms of the structural equation modeling type of approach. So methods that rely on experiments to understand how behavior changes, but also there's another big group of papers that we deal with that are on economics. So neither of us are economists, so we rely on associate editors to handle those papers. But innovative methods in things like forecasting, demand forecasting, from the economic side of things. Also, what we try and encourage, I think, are mixed methods approaches. So studies that are compartmentalized and build on each other, rather than conventional methods that really look at survey-based approaches in a sort of cross-sectional snapshot type of design. So longitudinal, mixed methods, innovative methods within any of the classifications, whether that's economics, quantitative, or qualitative methods, are also things that we'd like to encourage. And actual, papers or research methods such as this one that I mentioned here, where it recognizes that there are, conventional approaches have challenges or issues in relation to rigor, or when we think about environmental behavior, people's pro-environmental behavior. If we ask people about their pro-environmental behavior, we understand that people will naturally position their pro-environmental behavior as better than it actually is in reality. So, devising methods that overcome some of those challenges of social desirability bias or response bias, and also that enable us to overcome issues like test, retest, unreliability, and so on, in certain types of formats. In a qualitative sense, we like to encourage greater sample sizes for qualitative research, and innovative approaches to sort of co-produced research, participant-led research approaches within qualitative studies, but also studies that try to use technology innovatively as well, in developing different approaches, whether that's use of digital data, metadata. This is all really very important. I think that we see more and more of those papers emerging. Use of material that is derived from the web, That's also important and growing, but also GPS tracking and so on, a range of different sort of geographical methods that could be applied here that I haven't related to before.
Thank you, Scott. I've got one more question for you, but I don't want to eat into the audience time. So I'm going to check how I'm getting on with the time with the chair of the co-chair of the conference. And then if I have more time, I will get back to you. Time? Are we okay with time? Yes, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move. Sorry, I got to make sure that I keep the time. Now, the last question I have is I'm looking around the audience. It's we have a conference hall packed with early career researchers here. I would say 80–90%, and then PhD students. I don't know the backgrounds of the ones online, but I know many of them here listening to us now. What they would like to focus in the last part is your advice to the PhD students and early career researchers. What advice would you give to them? And I would like to focus this question across different dimensions. So what advice would you give to them? Let's put it this way. To succeed, I would put it, but then I would probe later on as you respond to this question. So early career researchers just started their academic career and they would like to establish themselves as a well-known academic.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a really, really critically important question. We are responsible basically for developing the researchers and the research leaders of the future. And early career academics are those research leaders of the future. So supporting their career development is really fundamentally important. As editors, I think that we recognize that postgraduate research students and early career researchers often have the best research. So, we are open to receiving submissions from PhD researchers and early career researchers, because they're often sort of thinking about the really, really topical current issues, and the quality of the research is really great. So, but what I would advise is that, really you need to think about your career, your publication strategy very carefully, and rather than try to put all your eggs into one basket and go for the very, very highest quality outlets with all of your research in one output, then I think that it's probably better to think about a sort of incremental strategy. So build up a little bit of track record, get your foot under the door in some good quality journals that really that give you some track record of going through the revise and review process and writing for a particular research outlet. I think that the Annals really welcomes the best research that you've got and are able to develop within your PhD study. You have to write it, I think, to meet the aims and objectives and the scope of the journal concerned. So Annals has its own scope, aims and scope, entirely different to other journals like Current Issues in Tourism, or Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, or Tourism Management, or Journal of Travel Research. Everyone is slightly different, and you have to write the paper to meet the aims and scope of that journal as best as you can. I think that the other point of advice I would give is, take rejection well. What we try to do is we try to give everybody really constructive feedback. We give all of our associate editors the same type of guidance in terms of what we expect from reviewers, what we expect from associate editors. It's about helping people to develop their ideas and their research, even if it gets rejected. And you have to consider that Annals receives 1,400 submissions per year. The desk rejection rate last year was 71%. and the overall reject rate was 90%. But that doesn't mean to say that you should not even consider annals. You should consider annals, because getting feedback from annals, it is also going to help you basically develop the research further. You know, once you get a rejection, it doesn't mean to say that, oh, that means that paper you have to just put on one side and forget about it. You know, it's about constantly refining the work, going back and updating it and developing it, and keep having another go. As a researcher, I think that one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is, to develop a thick skin. Everybody gets rejected many, many times, and it's about a learning process. We don't come out of our PhD being fully fledged academics able to craft research articles. We write a PhD in a particular type of way, particularly if you're writing it by thesis rather than by publication. If you're writing it by publication, it's a different type of training. But if you're writing it by thesis, it's not the same as writing a journal article, and you have to completely learn that craft. And it's something that you develop over many, many years. And the other part of that is to develop your network. So if you're trying to develop everything on your own, I would say share your research with other people. Get advice, as much advice as you can, from senior colleagues, from co-authors, from international authors, to help you develop the project and the ideas into a paper submission, because that will help your work develop. You learn from other people within that network and your collaborators, and you also then get a higher chance of your publication being accepted. And if it's got based on collaborative research, it has a much stronger chance of being cited.
Thank you, Scott. I'm not going to probe further, because what I would like to do is actually give the audience an opportunity to ask their questions if they have any. Yes, any questions? It's a great opportunity to ask. Now, Scott couldn't make it to be with us this time, but hopefully he will be with us, well, if COVID and all the other things permit, next year maybe in the future. Right. So thank you, Scott, once again being with us. Any questions?
I would love to have been there with you. So
thank you.
I'm really sorry.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes.
Please do feel free.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I would like to ask a question regarding how we can contribute in terms of methodologies. I was wondering if decision support systems would also contribute, like multi-criteria decision-making approaches, which I usually use, if there is any scope to get published in your journal. Thank you.
Yes, I believe so. We don't discriminate against any type of methodology. What we expect is just is rigor. And if there's innovation in that methodological approach, then that only enhances the chances of a successful review outcome.
Thank you, Professor, for your response. The main issue when I want to, for example, publish an article, I just wondering if I pay attention to theoretical background or the methodology. What do you prefer? We should be much more keen and motivated about the theoretical background or innovation, rather than considering the methodological background or the methodology that we want to apply?
It's both. To have a good chance of success in annals, it needs to have a strong theoretical orientation. A lot of people, though, struggle because they conflate having a strong theoretical orientation with having a lot of theory and mixing up lots of theories. And that doesn't work in annals, because what it means is that if you try and bring in too much theory, it often you can't get enough depth in there. So it tends to feel unfocused and not deep enough in terms of an engagement with a theoretical concept. So it needs to have a strong orientation to theory, but also it needs to achieve or demonstrate rigor in the methodology. So when I say rigor, that applies equally to qualitative methods as quantitative methods. You know, it's about applying the appropriate criteria in a very, very sort of appropriate way. So yeah, you need to have both basically. But you don't need to have methodological innovation and theory development. As long as you apply methodological approaches consistently within the criteria of the approach, and you can demonstrate credibility and trustworthiness with the findings, then you don't need to have methodological innovations per se.
Thank you for your insights. My question is that, as far as annals of tourism research is concerned, the focus of methodology is on quantitative, right? And even in the recent time, the cross-sectional data has to be collected in 3 intervals. And if I'm right, also, there's an additional question. If I'm writing a systematic literature review paper, what is the possibility that I can publish in your journal?
Yeah, we don't, I think that there's a sort of myth that annals is mostly qualitative. I think that we are open to all types of papers, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods, conceptual. I think that we try to encourage more conceptual papers because we've got this orientation towards conceptual development of tourism. But we don't really, you know, there are, if you look at the latest volume, there's a very, very large number of quantitative papers. So it's not that we prefer qualitative or quantitative. Sarah is the champion for the quantitative approaches, and I'm the champion for the qualitative approaches. But there's no sort of, you know, there's no page length or anything like that. Sorry, you know, volume length. We can accept as many papers as we like, but we're only interested really in those papers that are innovative, have bold ideas, really try to communicate something novel, either from the theoretical perspective or from the conceptual side. Now, you mentioned also about systematic literature reviews. We tend not to publish bibliometric review studies because they tend to be very descriptive. We do publish literature reviews where they deal with a topic that is really, really underrepresented. So we had one review paper on gender in tourism and hospitality research. And I think that that's a really important topic because we have gender discrimination. We want to, you know, guard against that type of thing. And also we want to promote, you know, equality, diversity and inclusivity issues within the journal. But we also have review papers that are associated with curated collections. Now, curated collections are not like virtual special issues. We sort of innovated this whole idea of curated collections. They're collections of articles on a topic, which is a living, evolving collection of research on that theme. So and systematic literature reviews are okay if they take, if they're undertaken with methodological rigor and take that sort of systematic literature review approach. But it can't be just a review of the literature. We need to have conceptual development that comes from that. You know, there's no point in having a description of, you know, a field unless it really, that description informs the development of the field in some way conceptually.
Thank you so much, Scott. Let's give a call opportunity to those ones online. Apparently there are questions and possibly comments there. I can't see them, but I guess you
yeah,
can.
I can see them. Yeah. There's a question here. What do you most and least like about being an editor? That's a really good question. I think that what I most like about being an editor is the fact that you get to see everybody's passion for their research that comes through the submissions that we receive. People really try hard, and you can tell that they've tried really hard and they've put everything into the development of the paper. So I guess the least like part of it is having to reject so many submissions, and I really feel sorry for people who receive a desk reject from us. The other thing that I really like about the job is that you do have a chance to influence the type of research that comes out and the way that research then hopefully is used and informs the industry, informs our identity as research scholars in our field, and also informs the field more generally. Hopefully in a very small way, you feel as though that is having an effect. But there's all sorts of things that we're doing, which is really interesting as well. We're sort of pioneering this idea of video abstracts. And these are really fantastic. We love the video abstracts, and you can see them at the end of many of the recent articles that we've just published. And it really puts a face to the name of the author behind it. So there's all sorts of ways in which the job gives you a lot of satisfaction. The thing that really is relentless is all the admin work. That's not so good.
Scott, thank you. I think there's a question there. There's a hand up. I'm not sure whether Erdal would like to ask a question or whether he's waving at us, congratulating, saying we have done a great job. So Erdal, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Have you got a question to Scott?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My questions are going to be in identity studies context. I would like to know that do tourists construct their identity through their consumption or vice versa? This was the first question. And the second question is, when evaluate tourism as a process, is identity related to pre, during, and post-tourism consumption as a whole? And one final question is, would you consider publishing a series of papers focusing on discussion about a new paradigm offered by the author applied on different aspects of tourism?
Let me take the last question first, because it's the easiest, right? So we would consider, we're always open to new ideas, basically. I think that we've expressed that openness in different ways. What we do have, though, is a range of sort of rules around who does what, basically, in the journal. It's a very distributed model, Annals. Basically, Sarah and I are editors-in-chief, but then we have 50 associate editors, and they are the experts in the field. So, Sarah and I do the really boring job, and then the associate editors get to handle the more interesting aspects of the review process. So we allow associate editors to curate these collections. And then the other thing that we can do are article collections. So we can pull together article collections, and we've just started this. We've got a little pilot going on where we've got an article collection on over-tourism. And that doesn't require an associate editor to be involved in that. So other people could come to us with ideas to develop article collections. And basically that means pulling together a range of articles that have already been published in the journal, not just Annals of Tourism Research, but also across to Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights, which has not published many articles yet, but it will do in the future. So, and these things are sort of living and growing collections. So yes, there is possibility for that. In relation to the question about identity, I think that that's more of a question that if you don't mind, you can send me an email and we can follow up with that, because I think it's too complicated to deal with here. And I think that actually, there's a mixture of both. People construct their identities through tourism, and also their tourism choices reflects their identity. And it depends really on a range of different things that we could go into for many minutes of discussion. Is that okay, Erdal? Send me an email.
Scott,
I'm familiar with your studies, your identity studies.
excuse me, Erdal. Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We will have to conclude the session. You can send an email to Scott and
Thank you for
he would respond. Thank you so much. Thank you. So Scott, thank you so much for your contribution. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart that your presence with us today means a lot to all of us here, and especially to the early career researchers and PhD students. So thank you so much for being with us today, and I really hope that we will host you in the future somewhere in Turkey or elsewhere to make sure that we create more knowledge transfer and scholarship across the continents all together as a team. So thank you so much.
That's all right. Levent, can I just answer the last question? There's one question here. Sorry, I'll keep you 1 second because it's a really important one. It's about title, an article title.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can feel free to respond to that as well.
Yeah, I think that all I would say about that is the title is really, really critically important. An exciting title has a big impact on an article's success. Once it's been accepted, the article title really drives downloads and citations and so on. So thinking about a great title is really, really important. That's what I would say. But be careful because Annals only allows very, very small titles. I would just think thanks very much, Levent, and to Emil for all of the hard work you've put in organising this conference. And I'm sure that the early career researchers particularly find the whole experience of really great value. I would love to have been with you in Turkey, and I'm very, very happy to come again next time for the conference. So that would be great. And thanks for hosting an event. Really appreciate it. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you. So I'm going to carry on without further delay and break. I would like to invite to the stage Cihan Çobanoğlu to start with. And our DRS colleague, Carlos Flavion from Spain. They represent different journals, and I decided to play this differently. So I love this part of this conference. Very social, very social. So they introduced each other without me doing anything here. That's great. That takes the pressure off my shoulder. Thank you so much. Thank you. So here we go. We have Carlos and Cihan. They have their own journals. I'm not going to go through the same set of questions that I went with Scott. I know that we have eaten into Cihan's and Carlos's time, but what I would like to do is take a different approach to run this session. I was planning to ask the same set of questions to them, but what I would like to do actually is to give the opportunity to the floor first. You ask your questions, yes? You ask your questions. What we are going to do is use those 4 questions as a structure to develop a discussion, collective discussion. So before we do that, here is an opportunity. Thank you very much for being with us once again. Great having you here. So couple of minutes, introduce your journals and tell the audience what makes your journal distinctive. By the way, both Cihan and Carlos, they are too virtual for me, right? I don't know how you will feel about them, but they are too virtual. But I still appreciate that they will be here with us in person and ready to respond to your questions. Cihan.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Levent. Good afternoon. I am here, very proud to be here to represent two journals that I edit. One of them is called Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, and the other one is Journal of Global Business Insights. Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology is the one that fits to this conference. Therefore, I'm going to spend more time on that one. It is a young journal, so it's only 12 years old. It was created in 2010. And the journal, as the title says, it focuses on technology in hospitality and tourism. We also have as the tagline as innovation, because anything that technology has usually has an innovative part, but also it doesn't have to be that one as well. To innovation by itself can be separate. The journal, even though it's young, it has been indexed in SSCI. So this is the second year. As I told you, it's a 12-year journal. And we have here Dr. Sedan Doğan as one of the associate editors. Dr. Katerina Berezina is the managing editor of the journal, along with many, and Dr. Faizan Ali is also one of the associate editors that attend this conference. We have a great team. The journal is indexed in SSCI, and it received its second impact factor as 4.2. I know that this is really doesn't tell the quality of a journal, because it's a number, and just because an article is cited by other doesn't mean always quality, but yet it is one of the most kind of used criteria, evaluation criteria for a journal. That's why I would like to tell you. It's also in Scopus. Scopus site score is 6.2. It's increasing every year, which is wonderful to see. But at the same time, it is a journal where you can really create and publish innovative ideas. One of the things that I proudly say, which is probably not different, but at least emphasize on a regular basis, is the application aspect. Hospitality and tourism is an applied field. For that reason, I particularly pay attention to the contributions to the journal that has some kind of a practical value, because that's what we are here, and that's the item that do. And the editorial board is great, diverse people from all around the world. And I would like to invite everybody in this room, including the PhD students, to serve not just JHTT, but all the other journals, because we need you. You know, when you submit an article, you want fast review, and the fast review is you. So if you participate, and we also have a training program for PhD students in the journal as well too. So thank you.
So yes, thank you. That's great. That's a great. So I really would like you to pay attention to the contrast here, in the sense that we listened to the editor of the Annals of Tourism Research. He did emphasize the importance of advancing theory development, whereas what we're hearing from Cihan here is that yes, we do pay attention to contribution, but what is equally or maybe even more important is to demonstrate the application of our study. So if we were to look at these journals, we can actually place them on a continuum. On one hand, a journal placing too much emphasis on maybe theory development, and maybe relatively little importance to application. Whereas what we're hearing here on the other end of the continuum is emphasis on the application. I think it's an important distinction here that we need to pay attention to. So over to Carlos. So let's listen to Carlos.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. So I would like to say thank you very much. And also for me, it has been fantastic to have this presidential conference, because it has allowed me to meet in person to Cihan. So we have been in contact with so many emails and so on, but I did not see him in the past, in the person. So, but I perfectly identify, as it is the case of Faizan Ali. So it's exactly the same. So it's fantastic to be here. So thank you so much. So let me say thank you very much for allowing me to present my journal, which has a very, very particular name. So I'm the editor-in-chief of the Spanish Journal of Marketing, but also I would like to highlight that it is just reflecting the name. So this is a journal with a long tradition, has been published since 1996, but let me tell you that it is new in the international market. Since I became editor-in-chief in 2016, so we changed everything, we changed to the English, so it's a new journal. Okay, so let me just start saying that the only one of Spanish is the name of the journal. So we are an international journal and we accept papers all over across the world. So in fact, I'm always trying to push international publications. So your publications will be absolutely welcome. So let me tell you that the topics that we are addressing are all the topics related with marketing. So this is a marketing journal. So any topic addressed in any international relevant market, it will be interesting for us. Okay, specifically the questions that we address, so customer behavior, customer experience, tourism, hospitality, banking, branding, product innovation, omnichannel retailing, so roaming, web roaming, advertising, cross-cultural marketing, social responsibility, sustainability, anything which will be related with marketing. So the main point of the journal is marketing. And also anything related with we have been addressing this morning, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, neuromarketing, and so on, it will be perfectly included. We publish special issues. The last special issue was focusing on service and was edited by Professor Leven Altinay, and other co-authors, some of them setting aside from Turkey. And also we have been publishing papers from people from Turkey. We have open several calls for papers now. One of them is focusing the attention in mixed reality and matching intelligence in marketing society, which is edited by Faisan Ali, by Sandra Loredo and Arnold Japrutra from Australia University. We have another special issue on customer engagement, which has been edited by Rauf Rader from India, Kevin Funso from the States, and we have another one on building knowledge on literature review, which has been edited by Hannah Snyder, which is the one who has the top paper most cited in marketing discipline. So the literature review paper published in the Journal of Business Research, I really recommend this very, very interesting paper, and Alar Bandriel from the Hassel University. So we publish all the papers in English. We also publish the summary and the keywords and the title in Spanish and in Chinese, which is the most frequent languages. We also, very, very important, I would like to highlight that this is a free open access journal. Okay, so that means that everybody can download the papers, everybody can read the papers for free, but also the authors do not have to pay anything. Okay, so it's a completely free. We establish a clear distinction on who pay and who publish. Okay, so the cost of the journal is funded by ESIC and by the Spanish Association of Marketing Scholars. So there is no relationship. And also we're giving a prize. We're publishing 20 papers a year. And we're giving a prize of 1,500 euros for the best paper. So it's not so difficult to have the best paper. So 1 in 20 have the best paper, okay? And also what I especially would like to highlight is that we develop a very, very constructive review process. So we are asking to the reviewers not to say what is not correctly done. So we are asking to the reviewers to say what the authors have to do in order to do correctly things. So the point is to be constructive, not to say what is not correct. Just please go ahead and let me know what should be done in order to correct this problem. Okay, and in order to have the commitment of the reviewers, because always it's very, very difficult to have committed reviewers, we're giving a prize of 500 euros. We are giving free prizes of 500 euros to the 3 best reviewers every year, and we're focusing on the comments made by the authors, the comments made by the editors, and the comments made by external reviewer. Okay, let me just finish in saying that, well, the philosophy of the journal is that authors, reviewers, and editors will improve the final result in order to get the best paper publishing.
Thank you both. So I'm gonna give an opportunity to all of you to ask questions. So let's co-create instead of me asking my own questions and imposing my background and assumptions to the session. I would very much like you to help us to co-create this session by asking questions, and there is no inappropriate question here, right? So feel free to ask questions. Thank you. I was thinking, what else can I say to encourage people to ask questions? And you have.
Thank you very much, Hocam. Thank you very much for all like the organizing team. Sorry, I got so excited. And like our professors as well to share their valuable knowledge and experiences with us. So you see, I mean, like we will see plenty of academic papers coming tomorrow and the next day as well throughout like this conference. And we have listened so much about like the effect of technology and everything like on tourism, hospitality offerings and so on. The problem here is that I'm a scholar on tourism and hospitality experience basically, but I'm trying to do something on technology side as well. But when we look at, for example, when we look at the applications that we have seen from the morning time, we have seen that like the dominant part is the technology providers. In fact, like this is the same thing for the industry and the same thing for the academic world as well. So when we look at the technology-oriented papers, this is my observation, we can see that not tourism scholars or hospitality scholars, but rather scholars from other fields, our technology-related fields, are publishing papers in tourism and hospitality journals. So do you have any kind of recommendation? Of course, we can set up some interdisciplinary teams, of course, but I feel like that we are trying to cope with this or trying to follow up or keep up with those kind of like experts who are dominant, both in industry and in the academia. So what would be your recommendations to us? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can just tell you that normally hospitality and tourism are an interdisciplinary field anyway, to begin with. So as an editor, when article is submitted to me, I seldom do not even look at who the authors are or which field they are from, right? We look at the paper, its content, its suitability, and then we send it to reviewers, etc. My advice to you in technology-related papers is to create a team of authors that has different background and they have different expertise. So, you know, often in the technology field that we say that if, for example, a computer scientist design a software for a hotel, practitioners complain, oh my God, this is not working. The reason that this person doesn't understand how hotel works, the flow, the everything. So that applies to a paper as well too. So if you're going to write a paper, let's say for the sake of example, which is one of the timely topics right now in JHTT is the robots. The use of robots in restaurants, in hotels, in travel agencies, etc. So if you're going to write a paper about this, and then this particular topic has some kind of a relevance to technical ability of that robot, you can definitely introduce somebody from a technical field that will strengthen the paper, but that is not necessary. So I'll tell you, Faizan knows this, that in our college, we are in the College of Business, there is one of the professors, very famous, and he is publishing in restaurant business, but he's a marketing professor. So we actually love to work with him on this and then bring in, and in addition, there is also engineering department in our university, and in there is a robotics department. They are actually creating a bartender, robotic bartender. The student who's doing his dissertation asked one of our faculty members to serve on his dissertation committee. What a great idea, right? Just because you know the technical, it doesn't mean that you know everything of all. That's why maybe later tomorrow I'm going to talk about networking. This is one of the pieces of it that you need to strategically consciously create your team based on these expertise levels. So your question is a very good one. And the answer is create your own team, make it the best that it can be.
So the emphasis here is very much on the complementary skills, complementary expertise, complementary methodologies, rather than everyone having expertise in the same subject area or in the same methodology area. So thank you.
Okay, I think your answer was perfect, but I just would like to say something. I forgot to say something. I forgot to say before. So as you have been saying, so we need to talk about numbers, okay, about the journals. Okay, we have our journal indexed in 16 indexes, in different 16 indexes, national indexes. We're still waiting to be indexed in the British index, in the Australian one, and in the SCI, but the information that I can give you is that last year our site score was 5.7. So, and the site score of this year is 6.6. So we are in position 36 of the 200 journals in the area of marketing. So we are around the European Journal of Marketing, Psychology and Marketing in this area. So, but we are still applying for indexes. Thank you.
And we got a response to that. Okay, so all right, that's great. Okay, Faizan. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. It's sort of, or maybe a recommendation or something. Oftentimes when we submit papers to journals, right, they sometimes get rejected because the editors think the topic is very old. However, there's contextual information. Sometimes authors are from country which is underdeveloped. For them, a technology may be very new in that country. Maybe the editor is from a developed country or whatever, right? I see that in hospitality and tourism, the usage of editorials is non-existent. Like there's no editorials. You normally don't see editorials coming out from top journals. In mainstream business journals, let's say Journal of Academy of Marketing Science, they use editorials to push out research priorities. Every 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, the editors write editorials, say, these are 5, 6, 7 topics that we would like to see in the journal. Do you think it might be a good idea to stimulate a better research culture and also to make it in line with editors' perspective of what might be new topics for their journals?
Faizan, I'll tell you that absolutely it's a wonderful idea because we need all these new ideas as well too. You know this very well that in the M3 Center at the University of South Florida, we conduct think tanks, right, on different topics. We did it on education, we did on the hospitality 2030. So absolutely needed. And as a matter of fact, we are also, as the JHTT, Journal of Hospitality Tourism Technology, planning one. We even joked about it. Maybe we'll invite people to a cruise ship because in cruise ship, you can't escape. Here in this, beautiful weather, Antalya, some people are outside, they are networking, which is very needed, but in a cruise, you can't really escape anywhere unless you are a good swimmer. So this one is definitely a good point. We need those kind of ideas. And I do also want to tell the audience that in your journal, the one that you are editing, Journal of Global and Tourism Research, in that one, Journal of Global Hospitality and Tourism, I'm sorry, that you are doing something very well. You invite the outside people and they give some ideas, the trends that are happening, which is, I think, gives a lot of people an idea. Oh, I didn't think about that. Or when somebody says that this is really needed, then they really start actually researching that area. So for that reason, I think Professor Levent does in his own journal as well too. So this is very well needed, but I want to tell everybody here that do not wait for those, and you can actually even do your own research. Like I sometimes get questions from PhD students that are trying to pick a topic. So they ask my advice. If they ask me the question, what should I study? I don't obviously give them an answer. How can I know, right? But I just tell them that, hey, look, give me the things that you're interested, maybe list 2, 3, 4, and I can give you some directions about them, my idea. Of course, I don't know everything, but I can just tell. And then if that person does the same thing, 3, 4 different people, and then he will be able to get it.
Can I just quickly ask a question there? So when it comes to, this is an interesting one, especially for the PhD students and again, those researchers who are already established but would like to continue by developing new project ideas. So when it comes to trends, what should our point of departure be, or any PhD student's point of departure be? Should it be the literature review itself, or should it be those trends out there that we are talking about, global challenges, up-to-date news from actual sources, and this could be TV, newspapers. So when it comes to topic selection, or should it be both, what should be the point of departure for topic identification?
So this is a great question. And that's why I tell my students, as a matter of fact, all of my graduate students, they have to do an assignment called article critique. So not only they need to read academic articles, but they need to read the news articles. What's the difference? Think about it. You are all researchers here. If you have a new idea today, you are going to build this idea. You are going to create the review literature, all of that stuff. You are going to submit. That article is going to be revised, rejected. You will submit to another journal. It takes about minimum 1 year, if not 2 or 3, for you to see that. So if the idea, the article is about technology, right? Like in my journal, it may be too late for the industry to actually get benefit of it. So for that reason, but in the other side, news articles are not peer reviewed. We know that, but yet they can give you very, very good clues about some of the research topics that you may pick. One just simple example, Hotel Henna in Japan, maybe you know that at least in technology field, is the first hotel chain that uses robots. But yet it's the first hotel chain that fired robots, right? So you get this from news. So here's a wonderful thing for you. Why did this happen? Why is the paradox here? So that could actually be one example where you can get these research topics from industry. That's why we ask our students to attend American Hotel Lodging Motel Association show in New York in November, or National Restaurant Association show, which is nothing, or HFTP, high tech. These are the technology conferences that industry attends. And they talk about the problems that they have now, which then you can take those information, turn into academic papers.
I just would like to give an answer to this question, what I think it was very, very interesting. So I would like to suggest to all of you that try to make your comments, your suggestions to the editor. So please do not believe that the journals is something closed, that there is a person which is doing everything and it is not connected with the real environment. As contrary to this, we are trying to develop special issues, try to finding people interested in collaborate and so on. So please believe and start to think journals such as something open that you can talk to them. So I will appreciate if next questions you can close. All right, yes. Yeah. Well, the question is that I'm not understanding anything. I perfectly understand to you, but from this area, I don't know, it's the sound. I cannot understand anything.
There's a bit of echo here, so if we could maybe turn it down a bit, no.
Yeah, it's echo.
Are we done? Yeah, okay, so there's a question here.
Well, my question is going to be a little bit offbeat of this session, of this particular session, but rather it'll be on the earlier session that you presented, Mr. Carlos. In brief, I took a couple of notes here. Your presentation, first of all, scared me a little because of the tourism industry in the future. Paper use versus ownership. So that means we buy less products and more services. So what do you think is going to happen in the future economically if this is the case? I mean, you're sitting there, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at the screen. So it's the virtual version that I'm looking. It's a larger version. So from your presentation, what I'm getting is that the world is going to move towards virtual reality thing up to 40%, as you mentioned, and it's not going to end there. Tourism industry will mostly be affected by VR by 40%. Can you hear me?
No. No, but for the people online, perhaps, so I don't know. He can translate me what you are saying.
So please
So-
try like this, and then we'll maybe Professor Levin can just summarize the question.
So what was saying about the viewers? Well, definitely, thank you very much.
Yeah, is that right?
Yes. Yes. Sorry, can I give an answer? Well, yeah, the first question
Can
is
we take
very,
the
very,
first part? Yes, first part, Carlos. So let's respond to the first part first, and then we take the other one.
excellent. Okay, so the question that you are suggesting, well, let me tell you that I have a very similar opinion that you have. Okay, because we have not so many years of difference. Okay, but I'm just describing what it is happening. So people is having more services. People is not owning things. For example, for people of my generation in Spain, we used to buy always our own house. We never will buy clothes second hand, but young people is doing that. I remember it was a present to buy a book to a friend, or to buy a film, or to buy a long play. Okay, but this is not being done anymore. So we are changing the approach, because all this information we have online, we have the books online, we have the access to the music online. So we are changing. Definitely, we have this perception of possession, but the question is, there is, as I explained this morning, there are two main reasons. Just because we think that we are saving, but let me tell you that I think that the most important one is the second. So we are not so, young people especially has not having so much money, and young people is being said, for example, in Spain, is not going to be live as good as us. As a result of many changes that are occurring in the international sphere of the power. Okay, they are not going to be as rich as us. So Europe is losing importance. States will be losing importance, and many other countries will increase. Companies have found that it is more profitable to share the information, to share the service, and it is more interesting for them. People is starting to change their mind. But let me tell you that, yes, I prefer to own things, but it is not the tendency of the market. Okay.
Have you got anything to say on that? Okay, let's move on to the second one.
They turn around, whereas the city of the root, have no story. Do that, capture all that money, make sure the airport not make any money, the pilot will not fly, he won't make any money. So another way, that's because statistics tell us right now it's 8 to 20% virtual versus actual. So this number is expected to grow. Not through it, now, like, we do not physically there, They do not spend.
What is happening, and the new technologies are coming, and the new technologies are changing everything. I think there was very graphic the example that I was telling you before. Okay, so anybody of us will be ready to say, I'm not going to use my mobile phone for 1 week. I'm not going to use the internet for the time 1 week or 1 month. How much money I have to pay you for not using this? Okay, during 1 week or 1 month. So the question is that technology is there. Technology is improving the possibilities, and technology is being used. So the question is that we need to consider this idea in order to put it into practice. How is going to be the future? The future is not going to be that technology will replace 100% this experience. As I say, well, I have been talking to him many times by email. I think we have not been talking by telephone, but also I have been seeing social networks and so on. So I have the impression that I know him. Okay, so we have shake hands like if we were friends from years and we did not know before. Okay, so and this is something very, very interesting and very, very important, that this gives you additional opportunities, because I really have a real interest in meeting Jihan. Okay. It is improving the possibilities of the destination, and definitely if we go further, we will improve the interest of the tourists who came here. Okay, if we do not know, so when everything changes, the one who changes do not win, but the one who do not changes, it lose. It is clear. Okay, how is going to be the future? I don't know. But the future is changing, and quite probably, well, let me tell you about the Ludites. Ludites, well, destroying the fabrics of the first industrial revolution, because, well, one fabric means that 200 people went out. But we developed the industry of textile. We developed the industry of steel. Okay, and nobody thinks today that we are going to do a shirt by hand. Okay, this is not acceptable. Okay, so I'm just trying to say what is going to happen, and definitely I still believe that the physical contact it will be very, very important, and I'm absolutely interested. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, any questions about publishing, contribution to knowledge?
First of all, thank you very much. So I am one of those people who are at the very beginning of the career. So every single thing is very important for me. So my question was about authorship. Some of my colleagues tend to work alone on their project or papers, where some of my friends prefer collaboration. So what is your perception about single author versus multiple authors? Do you have any positive perception about like collaboration, or any negative perception about single authors?
Did you say senior author?
Single authors
Single
versus
author.
multiple authors. Thank you.
I can just tell you that in the United States, there is a system called tenure, right? So usually the assistant professors, they work hard, they publish articles for 6 years, sometimes 7, sometimes 5, depending on the university, and then they go through this application process. It's been sent to external reviewers, right? So in many countries, it's give or take the similar situation. So when we give advice to young researchers, we always say that single authorship is important in 1 or 2 papers. At least that's what I tell. Maybe it might be different from other scholars, but the reason is that usually we like to see people work in teamworks, right? The answer to your question is balance. You don't want to have a candidate publishing 20 papers all single. It doesn't show that he or she is very good, can do everything from A to Z. Yes, single author can show that, right? You can take a paper from conception to publication by yourself without any need, any major help, right? But at the same time, if you see another candidate, they are all the same 4 people, 20 articles, and this particular candidate is always the 3rd author or 4th author. That's also not good. That's why I'm saying balance, right? So you need to have at least 1 or 2 papers single, or sometimes if you have a subject that you want to be well known of. Like I remember that my advisor told me that, Jihan, focus your research. When somebody write your name and the topic in Google, at that time we didn't have Google, Yahoo, you should be able to come in the searches. For me, that's technology and hospitality, right? So when I look at my articles, I always look at that particular topic and I pick my team members in a different way. And the order of those multiple authors in my, at least, book, it has nothing to do with who is the full professor or dean or department chair, who has put the most time into the article. So from that perspective, I think you should have 1 or 2 single author to be able to show that you can do the research independently.
Yes, very briefly. So I understand the authors has their own point of view, as you have been describing properly. I'm not going to talk about this because in every country is different, but I'm just talking about my point of view as the editor-in-chief of the Spanish Journal Marketing. What do I prefer, 1 or 2 authors or more? I prefer more than 1 author. But I think, let me tell you that it is very, very relevant. But I prefer more than 1 author. And I prefer that both authors came from different countries, because that means international collaboration. And I prefer authors which are not Spanish, because it gives me some of this very, we're talking about the 2%, okay? So that's all.
Professor Ali Öztürk asking from EMU, North Cyprus. He tells you, greeting editors, how can we as academics encourage, make it easier for the industry to read our articles? And my question to you, how can we overcome the stress term for process during the peer review when we phase of the articles? Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of industry in the articles, it can be in different phases, right? One is that you can actually use this as part of your data collection, focus group interviews. But if you're talking about, if the person who asked the question talks about how the industrial people can be an author, I have a great example for you, even though it's not related to technology. We have a hotel chain actually right here in Antalya. It's called Barut Hotels. They actually installed a cafeteria for their staff members. So this cafeteria, the new cafeteria, looks like the buffet that we are eating upstairs. It looks like just any other. Usually when you go to hotels, what do you see? The employee cafeteria is usually ugly, that doesn't have any decoration, and the food is not as good as what you give to the guests. But in this hotel, for example, they actually change it in such a way that when I went to the cafeteria, I did not understand that this was for the associates, this was for the employees. So when I have seen this, I asked the HR manager, do you have the data here for customer satisfaction, for employee satisfaction, and also financial stability, financial information about the company? They said, yes, so we worked together. Actually, we published an excellent article, the impact of changing a cafeteria. So it was an experimental pre and post kind of things. So it was wonderful. So if you were to be able to, I mean, especially in Cyprus, North Cyprus, where you have a lot of hospitality around you, like Antalya, it's very, very possible. You need to make it the process as little headache as possible for them, because they may not understand the statistical techniques. So you will just ask them to contribute in such a way. And in this particular example, actually the corporate HR director of Barut Hotels was a co-author. So it was wonderful.
Do not understand.
Okay, all right, that's fine. There is a question there, and I will take it as the last question of this session. You have a question?
Well, dear professors, Cihan Hoca, dear chair and other welcome. We are very happy having you here and welcoming you here. My question is very short, very short. We believe that we hear that statistical programs such as structural equation modeling and another Max CUDA and other NVivo some methods of analyzing or data can increase our papers acceptance levels by the perception of the editors.
I guess the question is the analysis method employed.
Use the microphone. You can just tell us.
Perceptions of the editors, positively or negatively.
Okay, perfect. Great question.
Analysis method.
Analysis methods, yeah. That's a great question. I'll tell you very quickly my answer also too.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, very quickly. In terms of methods, I really don't look at the methods without context. Just because somebody used a very nice PLS, SEM, it doesn't mean that that's a good paper versus not. I think I look at more the need for that particular method. Is it appropriate or not? So for that reason, I think that's the most important thing, that the method should not drive the paper. The paper, the context, the research questions should drive the method.
Yeah, I will summarize this saying that the method is the medium, but not the end.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you so much, everyone. I think it's a time for us to conclude. I would like to say huge thanks to Carlos and Cihan.
Thank you.
I mean, not only for their contribution in terms of transferring knowledge, exchanging ideas, but actually being with us during these days. That's extremely important. Why? Because networking is as important as exchanging ideas online, yes, transferring knowledge online. And we have been experiencing this over years. So thank you so much once again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Yep.
Certificates, okay. Plates, okay, plates. So may I ask you to come back again? I know it sounds like an exercise for today, but let's do it together.
I think Professor Levent see my belly. That's why he's trying to make me lose.
Okay, here we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.